let me go back to the plane crash for just a minute. Gravimetric distortions. This is what Clyde Lewis and I spent many hours talking about last night on the radio. And I hadn't heard of this, and that's why it was fascinating to me. But his conjecture is that possibly, the connection between Cern and this aircraft going down was due to the magnets at Cern causing a gravimetric distortion of the Alps themselves. And he cited Marcus Gerck in 1995. A geophysicist, Marcus Gerck, published a speculative scenario paper in which he said that there are gravimetric distortions or anomalies, gravity waves that pass through mountain ranges, in particular the Alps, right where this plane went down. Also the Himalayas, the Southeast Asia, and Andes, and Antarctica. In other words, what he's saying is there are these hairline-thin waves of gravimetric energy that pass through and distort the mountains and also distort the areas above the mountains. And perhaps this plane encountered a gravimetric wave, and that's what affected its avionics and brought it down. It's probable. He also cited Brookhaven Laboratory in New York, the RHIC, the particle accelerator, saying that there were at least 3 instances of aircraft, including possibly JFK's light aircraft, going down, JFK's son, aircraft going down that were attributed to, by physicists and by the media at the time, to the activities with the large magnets in the particle accelerator at Brookhaven. Now, again, it's all speculation. We're not accusing anyone of anything that's nefarious or illegal. But you look at the timing of events that are going on related to the timing of activities with these particle colliders and these massive magnets. And you have to say that there has to be some type of connection going on. Whether it's deliberate or accidental, who knows? Going back to the 300-foot depth of Cern under the Earth and gravimetric waves, certainly if you're down in the Earth that deep and you're producing waves of magnetic energy and you're distorting the gravity of the planet itself by doing that and causing earthquakes around the planet, that has been shown to be happening with the activities at Cern, it's not beyond the realm of possibility that their depth is for the purpose of affecting the Earth, and specifically its gravity, the gravity waves that already exist within the Earth. And that may tie into using gravity as a way to help in the opening of the portal. So we're seeing spin-off effects in the environment, whether it's aircraft or it's the movement of a Hurricane Aaron on the day of 9/11, moving from offshore to inshore towards New York at the time of 9/11, and the activities with the Brookhaven Laboratory and its magnets possibly affecting the course and the path of a hurricane. So anyway, that's a lot. My final conclusion on this plane crash is that, as I've said before, I do think if we're going to make a correlation between CERN's activities and this plane crash, the fact that it was a single aircraft and not the multiples of other Airbus type aircraft, Airbus manufactured aircraft that were in the air at the same time, not necessarily in the same location, but why is it that only one aircraft was affected, if it was affected by the magnetic activities with CERN and causing a gravimetric wave? I kind of differ a little bit away from Clyde. I mean, that's an interesting theory, and it may hold water. But because we're dealing with a single aircraft, a smooth glide path, consistent airspeed, and no deviation from course left or right, it's obviously under control, whether it's the pilot who was allegedly left alone and locked himself in the cockpit. I don't believe that for a second. Or it was the autopilot, or, and this is where my speculation comes in, a directed energy weapon, much like a tractor beam, utilized to overpower the aircraft and bring it down as a demonstration. Possibly a blood sacrifice, possibly ritual, but to me it looks like that aircraft was under control by external forces and brought down. And no way to prove it, no way to put the label on someone and say they're guilty of a crime. I'm not doing that. I'm just looking at the physics and saying, yeah, this is how it could be done.
Yeah, the only reason I tend to agree with that is if I look at the history of testing new things in the military, where we have the old atomic photos of everybody sitting in the little bunkers with their little glasses on, watching the bunker go off. And then we got 9/11, we got a bunch of people sitting over there hopping up and down after some cube on a barge twists up a bunch of metal cars. That reminds me of the nuclear tests. So we don't know if there was other people on site to witness this also as the tractor beam effect. That's just pure speculation. But you start putting enough of this together with, we are left wondering because we have such a dishonest media and a dishonest governments that it's very hard to put together things.
Yeah, it's pure speculation, but, I'll throw the question I threw out on the radio and was hoping that we'd get a pilot that would, or someone knowledgeable on that could answer it, but why in a 2-hour flight, a short duration puddle jump, shuttle aircraft, why would a pilot leave the cockpit shortly after reaching cruising altitude and cruising speed and essentially the autopilot being engaged at that point? Why would he leave the cockpit? Why was he unable to get through the door using the emergency passcode that he had? Was it suicidal? Was it a jihadist, undercover? Who knows, whatever. But why would a pilot leave the aircraft? Or the cockpit? I don't believe the cover story for a minute, and when it's put out in the mainstream media as the end-all reason or conjecture on their part so soon after the black box being recovered, when their own experts said it would take them days to decipher the voice recordings and the audible tones from the alarms. I don't buy it for a second, and so that leads me to an external causation for the crash.
And I also, I agree with you. I'm waiting for our YouTube friends who are number crunchers to find all the consistencies with the numbers that puts their fingerprints on this event, just like 9/11 has number fingerprints all over it also. Somebody is probably going to find some number fingerprints on this event also. That's just me speculating, but...
Sure. All right, guys. Take it home, Chris.
We have a very interesting show for you because I think that we're going to make you think a little bit about what has happened with this whole airplane crash that happened in the Alps. Now, I do know that they just released information that one of the pilots left the cockpit and was locked out of the cockpit and couldn't get through it. He was trying to break down the door, but what's interesting is the co-pilot that was in there would not let him in. That he made no noise, that he was silent, and he was waiting for the guy to come back in. He didn't come back in, or he didn't hear him, or something went down, which is very bizarre, unless we're looking at sabotage, where, hey, the guy leaves and then he just has it pop into his head that he's going to crash the plane. I don't know if that's the case. But see, back when we first started the show in 1995, we were just learning and doing research on secret government projects dealing in electromagnetic frequency control and the force multiplying of energy upon the ionosphere and the magnetosphere. And that was when it was in its infancy. HAARP was barely understood. CERN wasn't even thought of then. But of course, these projects, these electromagnetic frequency projects, spawned a great number of conspiracy theories dealing with the electromagnetic resonant induction and mass population control methods. We have the HAARP project, along with Montauk, Camp Hero, Brookhaven Collider. There was also a small I guess you could call it a small electromagnetic feature at Camp Hero that we were talking about. A lot of people said there was a lot of time travel that went on there, including Al Bielek, who you might remember was a spokesperson before he passed away about the Philadelphia Project. And all of these facilities, in every case dealing with electromagnetic experimentation, weather, earthquake, force multipliers, time travel, mass behavioral control methods, were in these general areas of Montauk and Brookhaven. Brookhaven Labs Super Collider named one of its giant magnets Phoenix, or PHENIX, which is ironic when you consider that nearby Montauk was the location of Project Phoenix and Project Phoenix 2. And many are aware of the Philadelphia experiment at Montauk, which was allegedly the precursor to the unified field testing that we hear about at Cern and the Higgs boson findings. So this is all stepping stones. About 20 years ago, talking about these small but very effective colliders and electromagnetic experiments. And it's also interesting, as a footnote, when other strange coincidences show up and you have to stop and pause and think, try to connect dots, draw lines, look at maps, figure out what you're talking about. Back in 1995, we were hearing of the Brookhaven Relativistic Heavy Ion Collider. That was the first machine in the world capable of colliding heavy ions, which are atoms which have had their outer cloud of electrons removed. In the area of Montauk, near the Brookhaven RHIC, there were at one time reports of various plane disasters that occurred while these facilities were operating. One of the planes that went down in the corridor near Brookhaven was Swiss Air Flight 111. That plane left from New York and started reporting problems soon after the plane went down September 2nd, 1998. After the black boxes were recovered, it was interesting to note that both tapes went blank before the plane crashed. Like something remarkably magnetic erased the tapes before the plane went down. Out of 229 people who perished, 2 of them were important figures at Brookhaven National Labs on the Swiss Air flight. Dr. Klaus Kindergeiger was a top physicist of the nuclear theory group at Brookhaven National Laboratory. Kindergeiger was working on a computerized model of large nuclei at high energies. There was also Dr. Perspan, who died in the crash. He was known as a pioneer in the field of microbeam radiation therapy and diagnostic X-rays. Span, along with Sweden, also a guest researcher at the Brookhaven Laboratory, a number of them. Another crash shrouded in elusive mystery is, of course, TWA Flight 800, which crashed in the very same area. Anytime there's a discussion that is critical of the $40 million that was spent for the investigation of TWA Flight 800, there seems to be an immediate dismissal of any other possibility of the cause, and it's dismissed as conspiracy theory, and investigative journalists are written off as crackpot theorists, even though the synchronicities that exist are just too good to overlook with regard to Flight 800, TWA. For example, Brookhaven Labs, coincidentally, was mentioned in the London Times after the initial reports of a ball of light raced up to Flight 800, or TWA Flight 800, just before it went down. A CIA data system, a satellite positioned over the Brookhaven National Laboratory, allegedly showed that a glowing object raced up to the TWA jet, passing it, then changing course and smashing into it. Many would say later that it was a missile, or it could have been electromagnetic energy balls being released from the Earth, or from a lab like Brookhaven, or some clandestine electromagnetic facility known for dabbling in space-time manipulation, like the allegedly abandoned Montauk, Camp Hero, and Cern. Well, there were several witnesses who claimed that they saw what appeared to be a ball of light brought down or heading up to the engine, bringing down TWA Flight 800. Now, if you believe a missile brought the plane down, then any theory that even smacks of electromagnetic balls of light would probably not sway you. However, theoretically speaking, magnetic rips in space-time could create a ripple or wormhole effect, which could cause bright flashes. They could ignite a fuel causing a casing, or the fuel basically causing a plane to explode. Some say it's improbable. It's not impossible, though. And what was interesting is when that plane did go up and it disappeared, Brookhaven's director spoke of how they were using the collider at the time and that it was in operation. 888-673-3700. That's 888-673-3700. We got some information about that memorandum from the president. It's about authorizing funds for ground troops in Libya. And there is a report tonight, rumor that Yemen is now at war, or is they got bombed by Saudi Arabia. So that's why this memorandum just went down. It sounded like somebody was resigning. But apparently it's about authorizing funds for ground troops in Libya. So you have it. Once again, getting ever closer to war. 888-673-3700. That's 888-673-3700. More on these electromagnetic projects. First, Brookhaven and the flights that have gone down. Flight 800, Swiss Air 111, and a few others, too, that haven't been mentioned. 888-673-3700. We'll be back.